this was my identity.
Nobody talks about how freaking hard it is to be a dentist. What most people talk about is how this affects the patient. What nobody talks about is how this affects us. Dentistry is ready for this. Now is really the time. Welcome back to Wellness in Dentistry. My name is Dr. Kyle Stanley. I'm a dentist, tech entrepreneur, speaker, and researcher, and I'm joined by your co-host, Dr. Martin Mendelson. Martin is a disabled dentist, coach, speaker, and author, and his new book is available wherever books are sold, and it's fantastic. And now you can even get CE credits
I
for it.
know. How crazy is
Yeah.
that?
It's
Yeah.
called One Move Makes All the Difference. It's awesome. Check it out. But today we're going to be talking about these big dental conferences, that, back in the 80s and 90s, every dentist went to. And now you kind of see a little bit of dissipation of what's happening with people showing up. You have certain things like the ADA that is just not going to do their yearly meeting. However, Martin and I have maybe a different experience with these bigger meetings. So, Martin, where were you last week?
I was at the Seattle Study Club annual symposium for the second year in a row. I was like crazy honored to be there for the second year in a row. And this was a big deal this year because it was Dr. Michael Cohen's last symposium. He's retiring. He's the founder of Seattle Study Club, if you don't know. And because of that, when was the last time you saw Frank Spear, John Coyce, Greg Kinzer, Ricardo Matrani, all Marcus Blatz, all in one place?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you were at Seattle Study Club, which, for those of you that may not be in the US, is a very respected group.
Yeah.
Very respected group. The highest level speakers, which tells you why Martin was there. I mean, the biggest names. And I think a lot of people look at these bigger events and they say, like, gosh, I don't want to go to those. Like
Yeah.
it's so big and there's so much drama happening. And are those the events that I actually want to go to? And I was actually in two different places last week. I spoke at the Rocky Mountain Dental Convention, which is in, why can't I think of it? Denver.
Denver.
And
Yeah. I
then
was like, isn't that Denver? Yeah.
yeah. And then I flew to Atlanta and did the Southern Academy of Periodontics meeting, which is a high level meeting too.
Yeah.
And, it was like 130 people at that one. Rocky Mountain Dental Convention is huge. And I'll tell you, so I got so much out of these meetings.
Yeah.
And I think why I think these meetings are still relevant is because, yes, there's great education, there's great speakers, there's new research being presented. But so much more than that, it's the camaraderie that happens outside of the actual event.
Oh, yeah.
The
Yeah.
dinners, the lunch meetings, hey, you see your dental school classmate. And I think there's something about commiserating with people that actually know what you're going through.
Yeah, yeah. And not all big meetings are the same. And, a lot of that ends up coming from the leadership of those meetings because not all meetings are still around anymore, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, there are some dental communities that have different, shall we say, personalities than others.
Hmm.
I've known of Rocky Mountain for years. That's a
Yeah.
really good meeting. They're very engaged clinicians of all stripes, as well as our support team. Southern Academy of Perio also, same kind of thing. And it's funny because as I was thinking about this, even when we were talking before we hit record, some of the most powerful meetings I've gone to lately are what I'll call the mid-size meetings or
Mm.
kind of more the private meetings. Like I keynoted at Sunrise Dental Solutions and Ideal Practices in 2025, and just such engaged people. And but it goes to what you were talking about the camaraderie and the commiseration and is the meeting that you're going to having does it have that open aperture, that psychological safety for people to be who they really are at the meetings? I think truly that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's been changing.
Yeah,
It's
big
been
time.
changing over the years when you get people like you and I to come talk. And
Yeah,
many
yeah,
times we're talking about non-clinical stuff,
yeah.
which even a few years ago would never have
Oh, never.
happened,
Are you
never have
kidding?
happened.
No, no. And I mean, huge shout out to, Care Credit in particular, because actually at the Seattle Study Club Symposium was a big personal event for me as well. It was my first book signing. So Care Credit bought 50 books
Yeah,
just for me to be able to sign and give to people. They were gone in less than an hour.
right.
And, I'm not selling treatment planning or procedures or material science. And so I can tell you, because for those that know of my background, I worked for Vita in North America for a while, for 5 years. And so I was involved in the decision making of what meetings we go to and the budgets behind those and so forth. And things have dramatically changed over the years. And part of that has to do with society in general, aka the internet, meaning the events and the conferences used to be the only places where you could really see or get detailed information about products, capital equipment, et cetera. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. So, what I know from my own experience and from talking to executives at a whole host of dental companies, from Ivoclar to Straumann, you name it, is that there's got to be an ROI there, of course, but the ROI shifted and the ROI is determined somewhat differently. It's not necessarily pure equipment or product sales. It's also ROI of relationships, ROI of getting in front of people, ROI of, let's face it, getting email addresses, and really feel like it was worth their while for being there. And had they not been there, it wouldn't have brought their business forward in that quarter or year if they weren't there. So things have definitely shifted big time.
Well, it's like what's happening when people invite us to come out and do like our
Yeah.
Lightside Live course, for
Yeah.
example. So we have MB2 that is having us come out.
Mhm.
When this comes out, it'll be just in a few weeks in
Yeah.
April. And does MB2 get an ROI of paying both of us to come out there for 2 days? Are they going to make more money? Maybe,
Hmm.
but what it comes out of is taking care of their clinicians.
Oh,
The
100%.
clinicians having that sustainability to
Yeah.
continue doing this profession that is very challenging.
Yeah.
It's like I've had an implant company, multiple implant companies, pay me to talk about mental health. I'm not selling implants.
Yep.
Some of these companies I did, talk about their implants for a decade or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I come out and talk about mental health, the sales rep doesn't necessarily get more orders that day.
Right.
However, it does build this relationship that, oh, this company cares about me as a person, as a
Yeah.
human, and you tend to respect companies more that do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, any good sales rep worth his or her salt would tell you that, right? And but I also think, that we've been talking a lot about like the corporate side, right? And so then the question becomes, okay, so what are you getting out of it? We talked about the collegiality and the commiseration, if you will, on the individual side, but I think there's a lot more we could dive into relative to that from an experience perspective too.
Well, why don't you give people a little bit of an inside scoop about how Seattle Study Club works? Because when I first went to a Seattle Study Club meeting, when I was speaking there for the first
Hmm.
time in, I don't know, 2016 or 17 or something,
Hmm.
I was surprised at how many non-clinical events there were during that
Yeah,
weekend.
yeah,
And I
that's
think
true.
they were very early on that.
Yeah, 100%. And
So can you
so
kind of give people an inside look on what that's like?
yeah, so at their symposium, and in fact, it's really really cool. I filed it away, but even their program is two-sided, their physical program. So one side is the clinical program, they turn it over, and then the other side is the non-clinical program. And they put a lot of thought into the non-clinical program. And you've seen a lot of these meetings over the years that do a non-clinical program, and a lot of times they'll call it the spouse program, where it's
Mhm.
like, they're going to go do wine tasting or whatever. And no knock to that, but Seattle Study Club's non-clinical program, although it had a little bit of that at the end, it was they had all kinds of different presentations on, I did some stuff on optimism as a strategic tool. They had other people talk about communication. They had one of the keynoters that was on main stage, that's kind of in the tech consulting space around innovation, give like a hands-on workshop, and that was part of the breakouts. That was not a clinical presentation, and so I think it's a acknowledgement in this case by the Seattle Study Club organization that it takes a lot more to run a practice and or keep the team engaged than just simply listening to, Frank Spear, Greg Kinzer, and John Kois, which is amazing.
Right.
There's also a lot more to a practice than the clinical stuff.
Well, it's funny, like I'm in the middle of giving my course, Your Best Year Ever, which is all
Mhm.
about mastering business skills. And there's so many dentists in there that are amazing dentists. I mean, I've talked to
Yeah.
them and they've done Coyce and Spear and Dawson, and they've taken my partner Matt Najad's
Mhm.
biomimetic course, and they've, flown to this place to take a rubber dam course. But that's not how you have a successful practice.
Nope.
It's sad. I wish it
Nope.
was because it would be a lot
Yeah.
easier. But you have these people that are amazing clinicians, but their business isn't doing great
Oh,
because
yeah.
they don't have the leadership skills, they don't have the communication skills, they don't have the systems, they don't
Hmm.
have the checklists and all that kind of stuff. And so I think when dentistry first implemented non-clinical things, it was more practice management.
Yeah.
And now what's nice that I see is that they're going more towards wellness
Yeah.
and, the human behind the white coat or behind the
Yep.
loops.
Yep.
Even you told me the theme for Seattle Study Club's symposium next year is health and wellness or something,
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which is
Which is
amazing. I mean, like when you and I started talking about this years and years ago, I would have never thought that a big group like that would do
never,
health and wellness as their
never.
theme.
Yeah. And I gotta give a shout out to Gary Dickinson, their relatively new CEO. He's a man from England. He's relocated to the States. He's been involved in dentistry for a long time, all across the world, by the way. And he's just such a genuine human being. And I feel so lucky to be able to have, you know, darkened the halls of, Spear and now Seattle. And it's just Gary Dickinson is a really great human, as is Greg Tice, who, for those who've been involved in that organization, he's been around a long time, and just everybody really benefits from both of their presence and the rest of their team. They have a very international team, and they really truly want to elevate dentistry, not just the people within their, shall we say, orbit, right? And I guess it kind of goes to my point. Those are the kind of meetings you want to look out for, you know?
Hmm.
Places like Rocky Mountain, places like Chicago Midwinter, places
Yep.
like Yankee. If you look at the care it takes to put on a meeting like that in that size and scope, CDA, of course. Oh my gosh, they've been great to me. Um, and the totality of what it is they have to offer, it shows the way they're thinking about dentistry today, and I'm convinced that's why they're still around. I mean, we all know, let's rip the Band-Aid off. What meeting no longer exists? The ADA meeting.
ADA.
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Ooh, the ADA.
As we get ourselves into trouble, why do you think that is?
Well, I've spoken at a lot of
Yeah,
ADA annual symposiums. I
yeah,
forget what they call it. They called it SmileCon towards the
yeah,
end, maybe the last 5 years before that. I think it was just
yeah,
like ADA yearly meeting or something.
yeah.
And when I was going through dental school and when I was just out of dental school, I remember that was like the one that everybody went to.
You're right.
That was the one that, like, no matter what,
Hmm.
people take their families because they're going to
Oh
do it in
yeah.
a nice place. And there's always dental school reunions happening there
Mhm.
because everybody's going to be at ADA. And then what I saw was, I think COVID really hurt it.
Yeah,
I think COVID really hurt it. I think there were like also the feeling of what the ADA is doing. Like, are they
yeah,
really helping the profession? Whatever you think of that, I think there's a general lack of trust for organized dentistry, which
yeah.
sucks because,
Yes.
who else do we have to advocate for us? I
That's
mean,
right.
they're kind of the last people. And so I saw both from the corporate side and from the speaker side too, because my company Pearl was an exhibitor at ADA many times.
Right.
And I was also there speaking, whether for Pearl or for implant companies or something. And I just saw to where no one was showing up. I mean, it was like a
Yeah.
ghost town.
Yeah.
COVID definitely had something to do with that.
Yeah.
Things going online. You know, it's harder to fill a room with dentists now than it's ever been.
Yeah. And what kind of shocked me, I went I guess would have been 2022 that I went in Houston. And as we were talking about earlier, things have changed. So, for example, if you go to Chicago Midwinter, which is still one of the most and best attended meetings on the planet,
And they're having it during the,
yeah, and they're having it in February in Chicago, like yeah,
yeah, cheap
and it's been
dentists.
around over 160 years, right?
That's crazy.
Um, and shout out and props to Dr. Cheryl Mora who runs the program. She's an amazing human being.
Yeah.
And even there, you see the footprint of many of the largest dental companies have changed from the years that I was involved with Vita back like 2010-ish. The Ivoclars of the world, the Ultradents of the world, they all had these massive footprints and they have scaled back dramatically, but they're
Hmm.
still there, right?
Yeah.
So when I went to ADA in 2022, I was floored. In fact, I remember I called you and I was like, dude, there's no one here. And what I
Yeah.
meant by that is I walked in the exhibit hall, there wasn't one major dental company exhibiting, not one. They were all
Wow.
local, smaller companies.
Mhm.
There was no nobody. I mean, pick your dental company if
Yeah.
you were not there. And I remember I said to you, remember this? I was like, this is a death knell. I was like, if
Hmm.
if if these companies aren't there post-COVID, what is going on? Now, I've also later heard, and this is supposition, so please take it for what it's worth. I heard this secondhand that, there was very much a pay to play type of relationship that the ADA had garnered or created and left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth of not only the speakers, but also the supporters. Because it's my understanding they were like, well, we're the ADA. You should want to come here
Right.
when, I'm sorry, my knowledge is worth something. And
Right.
so there were some problems there, but again, that's supposition. I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth, but again, the lack of that corporate support showed me what would end up happening, and now, as we all know, it's no longer. So
Well, how do you think the rise of online education has impacted these big meetings? You know, you and I both have online courses,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
also do a lot of in-person courses too.
yeah, yeah.
And online courses are great from an access standpoint. You know, I'm
Mhm.
giving one right now, an 8-week course.
Yeah. Which people are loving, by the way.
They are loving,
My
thank
friends that
you.
are in the course are like, this is amazing.
But there's nothing like our
Yeah,
in-person courses that we do,
yeah.
right? I mean, our 2-day course for Lightside Live,
Mhm.
you can take our online course and they're good.
Yeah.
There's nothing like coming and having it done in person.
Oh, totally, totally. Well, here's what I truly believe. What I truly believe is every type of delivery modality isn't for everybody. And let me explain. So, I lived for over a decade at Spear, and I think one of the things I observed is not everybody's going to come to Spear, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And frankly, they couldn't handle it if they did, right? So,
Hmm.
so I mean, there's what, almost 200,000 dental dentists in North
Yeah.
America. Like, forget it. No one
Yeah.
company can handle all that. But the folk who would go to Spear that would spend money for workshops are not necessarily the same people that are going to go to Chicago Midwinter.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is certainly you have people that do both, of course. But what I mean is that for those that are primarily getting their CE through a Chicago, through a Rocky Mountain, through a Hinman,
Hmm.
many of whom are not necessarily going to go to a Spear, a Pankey, a Dawson, right? And that's okay. And we have a huge profession. So what I'm going to say to you is this is Martin's musings. I have a weekly email called Martin's Monday Musings.
Yeah,
But
I love them.
this is one of my musings. One of my musings is people that are doing a lot of the online stuff wouldn't have gone to that other stuff anyway.
Anyways.
And around the 2020 and after, we saw a precipitous rise in online education. Why? Because you couldn't go anywhere, and then
Yeah.
you were concerned about going places. And now we all know things have kind of leveled off and gone down in terms of attendance and registration at online stuff, which is kind of a natural occurrence that mirrors what's going on in society. So I think the marketplace is segregated enough that you're going to have people going to a Lightside Live, a Chicago Midwinter, a Spear, a Dawson, online state meetings, blah 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 blah, or local study club stuff, right? Um, I just think it's the nature of the beast because one of the things that makes dentistry or any profession interesting is that we're all different people. So
Hmm.
that's what I think.
Yeah, these big meetings, and again, I've been on it like you've been on it from the corporate side, from the speaker
Yeah.
side, and from the attendance
Oh yeah.
side.
Oh yeah.
And I still think there's something so powerful about them. It's like, a few months ago we did a podcast on study clubs.
Yeah.
And I think they're so powerful. I
Yeah.
think there's still so much worth to meeting colleagues in person, even if you
Yeah.
don't talk to them, even if you just
Yeah.
sit next to them and know you're in with like-minded people that have
Yeah.
gone through similar stuff.
Yep.
There's still something so powerful about that. And you see that the companies that are still at these big meetings or supporting study clubs,
Hmm. Hmm.
they do really well.
Yeah. No, 100%.
There's something so specific about being there in person,
Hmm.
meeting someone in person, even
Hmm.
doing a demo of a product in person, right? Even if it's
Yeah.
software and you could do it online,
Yeah.
there's something about having another human being. I don't know. It's like it's innate in us, and
Mhm.
it's something that we can't get past, which is that having another human right in front of you.
Yeah. But I also think too, we bear responsibility as attendees. What am I looking to get out of this? What am I most looking forward to? How am I going to show up at this meeting?
That's a good
Uh,
point.
and what are the three, by the time I'm done, I want to leave here with at least three things that I'm going to implement in my practice, and I'm going to implement them by when. And by the way, this entire little discussion that I just started is all research based.
Yeah,
If you write down a goal, you're upwards of 46% more likely to achieve it. If you create social accountability, which is what we're talking about, you and I do this all the time. We're like, hey,
yeah,
I want to do this. You're now upwards of 65% more likely to do it. And if you set a deadline with those other two layers, now you're upwards of 95% of the way there to achieve that goal.
crazy.
So going to a meeting with intention, I think is really important. I mean, if your intention is just to knock out your C so that you end up being able to, if you get audited, you can produce it so your license is fine. Okay. But if you're looking to go deeper than that, then I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. So if I'm going to sign up for this course, why am I doing it? What am I looking to get out of it? How would I know that I've gotten that out of this course? And then, therefore, how am I going to bring it back? How am I going to bring it back to my team? Now, granted, if you were learning a technique that's purely on the doctor side, there may be certain elements that are not transferable back to your team. However, your team does support you in the provision of that care. So there's always going to be something that you could share, even if it's just in light of, hey, this is what I learned, and I think that if we work together in this way, for example, with your assistant, we're going to be a lot more efficient, or a lot more predictable, or a lot more accurate, whatever the case may be. So I think a lot of times people aren't as intentional around it. And then what happens is that they go home and their notes sit on their desk and nothing happens.
Hmm.
So,
I love what you said about showing up because
yeah,
if you show up to a study club and you're on your phone the whole time, you're not engaged, you're not
yeah,
going to get anything out of a study club. If
yeah,
you show up to a big meeting,
yeah,
same thing. You're, thinking about other stuff. You're not really mentally there. You're not getting anything out of it.
no, no,
What you put into it is what you get out of it. And maybe that's part of the reason why you have places like the ADA going or stopping doing it is because, yeah, people maybe still went, but maybe they're distracted by that addictive thing in their pocket.
Yeah, fair. I
But
mean,
like
one of my
I when I spoke at the Southern Academy of Para
uh
this weekend in Atlanta, and afterwards the organizers, the main periodontists that
mhm,
invited me, came up and said like, thanks for coming and we really liked it and
mhm.
stuff. What did you think of the crowd? And I had to tell them there was no one on their phone.
That's amazing.
Like, what an engaged crowd. And
Yeah.
even the best speakers in the world,
Totally.
there's always someone on their phone.
Totally.
And so I think it has to do with more is this is an engaged crowd.
Yeah.
They've they value this meeting. They trust the organizers to bring speakers that will be entertaining, educational,
Hmm.
fun, and it's great as a speaker too,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
really feel like I can make a difference.
Hmm.
And that's what happened. There were like some big breakthroughs that happened with this group
Yep.
we ended up shutting it down to a half day. It was supposed to be a full day, but because of
Oh
the
yeah, because
weather
of the
and all the
weather.
people
Yeah.
that had to get home to
Yeah.
all these places that were having like sideways ice sheets coming down
Yeah,
from,
that happened with Seattle too. A lot of people had to leave early, but
yeah.
my take on it was, well, at least they came and had a great 2 days before they had to leave. The opposite. I don't remember which year it was, like 2017 for the Spear Summit. There were two different hurricanes bearing down on Florida and Houston,
Oh
respectively,
my gosh.
and literally half the people didn't show up to begin with because they couldn't get
Oh.
out. So yeah, weather is always an interesting, an interesting variable. That's for sure.
So where do you think these big meetings are going?
I think the writing's on the wall. I think the ones that are still around for the most part, I think are going to do fairly well for the next 5, 10 years. The Chicago's, the Rocky Mountains, the Hinmans, the CDAs, the Yankees. I think they're going to do fine. While at the same time, I think the leadership of those meetings really need to think about the ROI for everybody involved, right? And I think the attendees need to think about their ROI, bring it back to the practice. And I think our corporate partners need to continue to think about ROI in new and inventive ways, because you know sales aren't always going to happen on the show floor because they don't have to anymore. So, and they
Yeah, that's
haven't for a
true.
long time. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think one thing that these big meetings can do is have some of the non-clinical stuff.
yeah,
And I'm not saying like have mental health or have, business stuff. I'm saying more of like the networking type of
yeah,
things. Like when I went to DS World or Dance by Serona World,
hmm,
that meeting is so fun because you've got great
yeah,
speakers and then you've got, Gwen Stefani is singing
yeah,
and, Jerry
yeah.
Seinfeld is there and that's fun. That makes
Oh,
things
totally.
fun. And
Yeah,
people have a good time and you meet people at the bar, walking to dinner, and
yeah.
the people create relationships and relationships are what keep this whole profession together.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah.
Well, guys, we think that these big meetings still bring value. We'd love to hear what you think.
Hmm.
Message us on Instagram, or you guys know how to get a hold of us, or they're on our website. You can go to wellnessanddentistry.com, check out all of our links. And also, if you haven't signed up to come join us in April 10th and 11th in Dallas, you can join if you're an MB2 doctor, and you can also join if you're a Carabelli Club member. So if you're not an MB2 doctor, then you can become a Carabelli Club member, which is the buying group that my practice became a part of, and we're going to save around $20,000 this year because of that membership. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Check that out. The links are in the show links, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Wellness and Dentistry.
Bye bye.